Welcome to Supersizing Bliss, the podcast, where I, Toby Witte, read from my book, Supersizing Bliss, How We Have Betrayed Our Homes and the Happiness We Seek. In the chapter Builders Build, we took a quick look at who designs your home, the role of builders and architects, and who else might be involved in the process. Mike Masto and Ryan Dennison are a builder duo known for the construction company Spoke and Hammer. I've had the pleasure to work on several homes with them and have fallen in love with their uncanny ability to see every last bolt and detail before the construction even begins. They are true craft builders. Their expertise and enthusiasm for what they do is intoxicating. Ryan and Mike, you consider yourself craft builders. What do you mean by that?
Basically just that we are dedicated to the craft of construction. Custom builder kind of separates you from more of the track builders of the world, but we kind of want to take it another step beyond custom builder, I would say, and really to the point where every one of our projects has some kind of unique architectural aspect to it. We want each of our projects to kind of stand on its own as a one, just the perfect house for that homeowner, and that just kind of has its own personality. And I think that takes working with amazing clients and amazing architects like you that also value those sorts of things. So I think that's the key, is finding partners who are excited about doing that same thing. Ryan, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would just say too that we really like to push sort of the boundaries of what is possible. So yeah, partnering with great designers that want to execute a unique vision, and then pushing the boundaries in terms of sustainability, high performance, those things for us, where you really have to zero in on the details. The nitty gritty details really matter when trying to execute at that level. So yeah, we've had to think sometimes even outside of the box of residential, and bring in commercial subs on particular projects to again kind of execute at that high level.
Yeah, I think it also takes having subcontractors who are willing to kind of try something out of the box.
Yep.
A lot of subs kind of get in that, like, this is how we do it on every house, and that's the way they want to roll. So we want to find the subs who are excited about taking on new challenges, and are willing to kind of work alongside us on making something special happen.
Is it true to say, you're talking about subs, that in general, all the tasks are being subcontracted out to specific trades, but I understand you guys have a background in swinging the hammer yourself back when, and so does that, from an outside perspective, it seems to me that you bring that understanding to each of the trades you're working with, what they're doing, what the skill set is for a particular task, and all the way to thinking through problems and understanding the construction inside out for each project you're working on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think we certainly bring that element to the table. Yeah, we have both worked in construction and been construction crew leaders. We cut our teeth at Habitat for Humanity, and kind of me with my dad before that. He got his GC license when I was young. So we have had a lot of hands-on construction experience. And really, that's part of why we started Spoke and Hammer, is to be really involved at every level of these projects. And so we don't often swing a hammer these days, although sometimes there is call for that, which we love. But yeah, I think just knowing, how decisions impact each other, and how one trade impacts another, and how the quality of work, sort of what to look for, what to expect. I think we bring that from our own construction background.
Can you give a brief sort of introduction to Spoke and Hammer? It's the two of you. How long have you been in business, and what is or where do you find your sweet spot these days?
Spoke and Hammer has been around since 2015. Ryan and I started the company kind of as a side gig while we were both at Habitat for Humanity of Charlotte. We did a few smaller house renovations, some smaller kitchen renovations while we still had full-time jobs. We both had families at the time, so it was a little scary to think about leaving a full-time salary job and jump into something new. So we kind of crept into it a little bit as a side project. But kind of going back even from there, how we decided to start the business in the first place. So Ryan and I we both worked at Habitat for 15 years, became friends and everything while we worked there. A lot of people actually, just to kind of give a plug to Habitat, a lot of people don't realize, but Habitat for Humanity of Charlotte is actually one of the biggest home builders in the city. I don't know exactly their current numbers, but they're probably going to build 50 new homes this year, and they'll renovate through their critical home repair program probably over 200 houses this year. So they're doing a crazy volume of work to create new affordable housing and to preserve existing affordable housing. So it was a great place for us to get tons of experience. Each of us as site supervisors, we were building 12 to 15 new houses a year, developing really strong relationships with subcontractors. And then the other element that a lot of people don't know is Habitat for Humanity of Charlotte builds very high performance houses. And so we were really introduced to that world through Habitat. While we were there, we built LEED platinum houses. For a while, at least all of their houses were built to some LEED standard at least. And now I know they continue to do very, elements that are far beyond what kind of a typical builder would do. Which makes sense in the affordable housing world, because that house is then obviously it's built well, it's built to last, but also the operating costs of that house for that homeowner are going to be low because it has very high performance elements. Habitat was actually a great place for us to get started. And then while we were there, Ryan and I kind of kicked around the idea of starting our own construction company. Took us a little while to do it. We actually started outside of Habitat, we started to ride a lot, riding bikes. We were training for a couple long rides. And during those rides, we started to talk a little bit more about how we could make this business take off and get started. And that's actually where the spoke and hammer comes from, is that we kind of started during those rides. So Ryan, what else do you want to add there?
Yeah, a couple elements of our origin story there. We were kind of frustrated at the time looking around the builder landscape of Charlotte, just that it seemed like a lot of builders were sort of building the same old things in the same old ways. And we felt like there was a lot of space and opportunity to be pushing those boundaries, both in terms of construction techniques, construction technology, and then partnering with folks that were trying to design something that looked different than sort of the traditional home. So we were just kind of tired of all the same old stuff that was being churned out, and thought, we would love to be a part of a company that does something different, that really wants to pursue the craft and the excellence of building things that look different as well as perform different for the homeowner. So those were sort of two of our guiding principles when we started Spoke and Hammer, was just, wanting to do things, seeing a better way to do things, and wanting to pursue that vision.
Can you give the listeners sort of a insight into where you see your work as a builder, as a general contractor, within the entire home creation process? For somebody who's doing this for the first time and has nothing but questions, what happens, or why does somebody reach out to a builder? What is sort of the tasks of the builder in general terms, and how do you sort of fit into the entire system?
Sure. Yeah. I think we see our role as really the ones that get to execute the vision of the architect and the clients, right? And so we definitely take a team approach. It takes all of us, working together, pulling in the same direction to pull off these high performance custom homes that are each unique and tailored to the individual, desires and tastes of the clients. And so we see a lot of our role as being the ones that kind of help get to steer that ship and bring everybody on board, make sure that we're hearing all of the voices, and then taking that and translating it to, physical construction. As we can look at it on a sheet of paper, but you might interpret that drawing differently than we would, differently than the clients. And so there has to be a ton of communication within the whole team to make sure that we're all understanding and all pulling in that same direction. And then additionally, we are the ones that are directly managing all the subs and suppliers. And it literally takes hundreds of people on every job. And so our job is really to manage the workflow. It's basically a giant project management role where we're taking the vision and the drawings and then bringing the right subs and the right materials and the right expertise to the table, and then making sure that all of that is getting put together in a way that, not only pays attention to best building practices, moisture management, things that we care about on the construction side, but that also, look really good and are built to a very high quality standard and that meet the expectations of the designers and the clients as well.
We also like to kind of, hopefully we are helping kind of throughout the process with kind of some design decisions too. Like sometimes the clients or architects might have some design element that they want to incorporate or to change kind of mid-process. And hopefully our experience helps us know kind of not only, what the near-term impacts of that are, but also kind of what the down the road impacts of that might be. So hopefully we can kind of see things from a construction perspective that and help bring that insight into the decision making process that maybe the architect or client don't necessarily see because they're not involved in the day-to-day construction part of the process.
You already talked about this a little bit. From my perspective, it seems like each builder approaches their work from a different angle and with different priorities. And are you able to sketch maybe what options are out there in terms of builders and how you differentiate yourself? You already mentioned that a little bit, but in general terms, how does that sort of stack up maybe to other builders? Is that a fair question to ask?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I don't think we'll speak too much to other builders, but I think we can say that we have made intentional choices with Spoke and Hammer to sort of structure ourselves in a way that, one feels resonant with us, but then feels like it does differentiate us. A couple things there is, Spoke and Hammer is intentionally very small. It's only Mike and I. And so we don't have staff. We don't have folks that go out and manage the projects day to day for us. We do all of that in-house ourselves. And it's because we started Spoke and Hammer because we like to be hands-on. We like to build stuff. And so we want to be on site every day and giving each project the attention that it deserves. So I think that frees us up to do that. We're not managing staff. We don't have personnel issues. There's layers of complication there that we just don't have to worry about. So then we get to be really in the weeds and in the details, maybe more than other builders, on these fun elements for us of construction, whether it be, details on anchoring to footings or custom built-in design and execution. There's all these sorts of areas in custom home building that require a really high level of detail. And that's kind of what we love. We call ourselves construction nerds. We like to really get into the nitty gritty of all of that and how it fits together, and then how it performs ultimately, and how it looks for the clients. So yeah, those are some of the sort of intentional ways that we've tried to set Spoke and Hammer apart. We say that we're intentionally a high quality, a low quantity builder, and we do that on purpose.
Yeah, and that also plays out, I think, we've talked a little bit about communication with the whole team, but also I think where it helps is kind of intercompany communication. If you've got a large builder who's got an owner who might be the one who goes and talks to the clients originally and maybe helps with the estimating, but probably they may also have an estimator on their staff. And then they have a project manager who's going to be the one on site actually carrying out the construction. And then they have somebody who's helping with homeowner selections, a separate person. And then they have, an office person. Each one of those people is touching the project in different ways. But if they're not all communicating extremely well together, pieces can get missed. Or even for the next project, if the project manager notices something on site that he has to react to, or she has to react to, does that then feedback get incorporated into the rest of the company for future projects? For Ryan and I, literally, we are the company. We copy each other on every email. We review the notes of every meeting. Like we literally are in on every aspect of every project, just the two of us. And so I think there's a very fast feedback loop within our company as well. that helps us set us up well for the next project, but also helps us maintain a really high level of communication with our clients and architects and just the whole team.
Yeah, because it also means that if you have a question for Spoken Hammer, you're reaching out to one of us, and so it's really clear who to talk to. And like Mike is saying, we're deep in the weeds on every project, so we're not saying, oh, you need to call your project manager, or oh, you need to call the designer. We set up really intentional direct communication throughout each project so that we're the ones that you work with from the very beginning all the way through move-in. And we like that for ourselves, and we've had good feedback from clients as well, that it's nice to have that very personal touch, know who to get in touch with whenever you have a question. So yeah, that's been a good benefit as well, to keeping it small on purpose.
Begs the question for me, where can a construction go wrong essentially? What are sort of the big hurdles that you feel like clients or future homeowners should in general look out for, and maybe listing out a couple of those, and we can get into a few of them, how you meet that. But what are, in general terms, the big problems that might arise in a construction project?
There's lots of different ways.
No kidding.
There's almost an infinite number of ways things can go wrong, right? So one thing I'll focus on in kind of the answer is the importance of the pre-construction process. And I think this, obviously you as the architect are a big part of this, and you, I'm sure, have your own process before it even gets to us. But we really place a big emphasis on getting way into the weeds as soon as we can. And so when we are providing preliminary pricing for a potential client, we are digging into every detail of the project. And that's not only to give them the best price information that we can, but also to help study the feasibility of the project from a construction process. So we're going to take your drawings, whether they're at the schematic level or beyond, and we're going to run it through our construction filter and say, where are we seeing things that look like they're not going to play out right? We always joke that whether you want our feedback or not, we're not afraid to give it. And so we will often bring things that we see even at that very initial stage, and we'll say, how are you envisioning pulling this off? Or these are the water concerns that we have with how you're designing this, or whatever we might catch at that point. But I do think that is an extremely important part of our process as the builder, is that before you even get to construction, it's super important to have really laid out the entire project, even in your mind, and say, is all of this going to work and come together? We spend a ton of time at that process, and that we really have found helps smooth the actual building process from there.
And then, to piggyback there, I think what we've heard from clients that have worked with other builders in particular is communication is just a major area that things can go wrong. Like Mike was alluding to earlier, if everybody's not sort of on the same page and pulling in the same direction, things can get squirrely pretty quickly. So we really emphasize communication, and we've got several different methods for doing that. But I think that's one big piece, is that, we like to tell folks that if anything, we're going to over communicate with you through the process. Just like any good relationship, it can go south quickly if there's not good communication. So, we're not perfect. Our subs aren't perfect. There's inevitably something that does go wrong on almost every project. Usually it's minor, but then we want to be the ones, catching it, addressing it up front with the owners, very transparent, and hey, there's no cost to you, obviously, if it's on us. And so really communication, sort of who owns what pieces, I think is really important. And then, we're going to stand by our work. We work with subs that stand by their work. So we've had subs, make $10,000-$20,000 mistakes, unfortunately, and they've owned it, come back, fixed it, gotten it right. And, the clients and didn't have to pay additional, nor should they, obviously. So yeah, I think that there's infinite number of things that can go wrong and sometimes do go wrong. But I think the biggest test is how do you respond to that then as a builder? What is your reaction, and what are you doing to sort of make it right?
Can you talk to the price? I'm sure so over the last few years, prices have gone up, and at some point were really crazy up and down. I feel like this might be one of the biggest sort of questions people have: what to expect when building a house? Why are there such different prices out there? Yeah, is there a good measuring stick you can give people what to expect? And yeah, are there certain windows of costs that maybe a certain project falls into to allow people to have a better sense about where the prices lie? Can you share some of that?
Well, we do struggle with giving, everybody loves to ask for kind of the per square foot cost. Like, what is this going to cost me per square foot? And we've always struggled with giving anybody that number. Just as an example, even in the past 2 years, look at kind of the projects we've done, they've ranged from $850 per square foot at the high end down to really we're kind of seeing it's hard to really even be in the 300s. We're really seeing kind of being around the $400 per square foot range is basically as low as we're seeing on our recent projects. But just that's one is twice as much as the other per square foot. So we don't give a per square foot range when it comes to pricing. We always emphasize that you really need to go through our pre-construction deep dive, like I talked about, so that we can pour through the even if it's a schematic level of drawings, we really want to dig into it and find the specific cost for that project, what's driving it, and by allowing us to do that, we're going to give information to you, architect, and your clients that it's line item level detail where it's going to allow you to see what are the elements that are really pushing up the costs, where can we potentially save in terms of value engineering, that kind of stuff. It is hard for us to look at a set of drawings and really kind of immediately know what it's going to cost.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had a magic wand that we could wave that would spit out a great number for every client. But yeah, I just think we haven't found that magic wand. And for us, what clients are asking for is a full custom new home that's unique, that has special elements that looks different than their neighbors or even things that we have built in the past. So, we can share what previous projects have costed. I think that's as close as we were able to typically get folks. Like you said, if we can compare one in the last couple of years, that's sort of as close as we can typically get. But yeah, often that gets difficult because prices have swung, so much in even the last 5 years. So it is tricky. I wish there was a magic wand, but for us at least, there isn't really one. It is so project specific.
It does come down a lot to the decisions that the clients make and what is important to them. You can pick pretty much any line item, and depending on how much that individual homeowner prioritizes that element, the cost could be wildly different. I could use like light fixtures as an example or cabinetry as an example. The range is incredible. You could get a $200 light fixture that looks really cool and fits well in a modern house, or you could literally go to $17,000 for one light fixture that looks amazing in a modern house. And so what decisions are the homeowners going to make in terms of those decisions? It's impossible for us to know ahead of time when we are trying to give kind of a broad price estimate. So we really need to kind of dig into those details.
In a similar vein, can you talk about the timeline or how long it takes to build a custom home and
Yeah.
what might change that timeline?
Yeah, sure. For us, I would say we're typically in the 12 to 16 month range on a full custom new home, and typically we're closer to the 16-month range if it's a challenging site. If we have to come in and do a lot of work to the site ahead of time in terms of clearing, grading, if there's any drainage, or we had one at Lake Wiley that had to have major erosion control installed, as well as a culvert under the driveway, a massive culvert with retaining walls on both sides. So there were several months of sort of site development work that had to happen before we could even dig footings and get started on vertical construction. So, and then permitting can also be a major factor depending on the municipality. They all have their own set of hoops that you have to jump through, and some of those take longer than others. So we've seen permitting again before we can even touch the dirt. Sometimes there's, often it's a month or two here in Mecklenburg, but on Lake Wiley, because you're on the lake, they have a much longer process that involves a civil engineer. And so that can take months just to work through that process. So a lot of it is sort of on that front end. And then typically once we start vertical construction, we're around 12 months, 10 to 12 months for the vertical construction piece of it.
One big key element of the construction process is the channeling of funds. It always seems to me, I keep saying to my clients that they don't really own the construction site or the house that's being built. The builder does. You put out a lot of money up front to get things going and moving, and then receive funds either from the clients or the banks in the process. At the end of the day, huge sums are being processed, life savings of your clients. How do you manage the funds of your clients, and what are kind of maybe some good tips to provide to your clients, what to look out for, or what to do in order for it all to move smoothly and without a hitch?
Well, Mike's our finance guy, so Mike, I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah, no, that's interesting and great that you have that insight, Toby, on kind of how that plays out. Because yeah, that is a challenge for builders. I think that is the cash flow part of it. Like you said, especially when you're in a bank funded situation, they're always on a reimbursement process. They'll give you a deposit up front at the beginning of the project, but they're not then giving you deposits moving forward. And so you are putting out, as the builder, you're putting out the cash to build the house and then being reimbursed throughout the process by the bank or the client. And so, just from our perspective, we have definitely had to have things in place like lines of credit. We're conservative with our own finances, so that we know we have the access to the cash to make that happen. But I mean, that's an important thing for a client to feel comfortable with, is that their builder is going to be able to pay their subs and keep the project moving. Because yeah, nothing can mess things up more than a builder running out of cash or a client running out of cash. So yeah, that is a challenge that we deal with for sure on a day-to-day basis. We definitely have, we're lucky to have some good lines of credit, and that hasn't been a problem for us. And it's something we take pride in, is that our subs are always paid right on time. I think that goes a long way for sure in maintaining relationships with your subcontractors. Is we take that super seriously, that when they've done their work, they get paid for it immediately. And that, I think, helps with the success of the project as well. From the client side, I don't know, other than, obviously kind of the realization that even if you've secured a loan for the project, probably also making sure you have a little bit of extra cash, slush fund. For one, you may want to make decisions throughout the build where you say, oh, actually, I do want to finish out this area that we thought we were just going to leave as an attic, or I actually want to get the more expensive countertops or whatever. We tend to see that happen a lot. And if the bank funds are all you have to deal with, now you don't have a way to kind of make those more expensive decisions. So yeah, I guess always encouraging people to maybe realize that it may take a little bit more cash than you were expecting.
You mentioned earlier LEED certification. I think you're also certified passive house builders. Can you sort of share some of the things that you implement on your projects that fall into that kind of energy efficient spectrum?
As Mike mentioned earlier, we sort of cut our teeth on a lot of that from Habitat. That was, building Energy Star and building LEED certified homes. And so we definitely took that as a guiding principle into Spoke and Hammer. So we have built to a lot of those program standards as well on projects that we have built. We built the first two Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready Homes program. We had the first two certified here in Charlotte. And, although we would love for everyone to build a passive certified home, we recognize that that may not be in the cards for them, either design-wise or budget-wise. So what we've tried to do is just integrate sort of what we would consider the key standards from Passive House principles into all of our builds. And so certainly the building envelope is a huge one for us, because you really only get one shot at it. You only have the house open to this level to be able to super insulate the shell of the home one time without serious renovation down the line. So, you can always upgrade HVAC equipment and water heating equipment. Those are relatively easy down the line to upgrade, but the building envelope is certainly not easy. And so we really place a premium on that. We try to build thermally broken exterior to really make sure that you're blocking that heat and cold transfer through, stud framing lumber or through certainly steel members that might be running inside to outside the home. So we pay a special attention to that. And we typically, wrap the home with a layer of exterior insulation to do that. And so it's almost like building a Yeti cooler, a similar principle where you're super insulating the shell well beyond code to ensure that you're doing the sort of best job you can there now while it's easy to do. Little bit of a cost premium, but makes sense and saves the owners money for the lifetime of the build. Air sealing is another one similarly, where all homes used to be sort of naturally ventilated, right? Because there were big holes, big leaky gaps throughout, old homes that were built. And so now modern construction, we pay super amounts of attention to air sealing every little penetration that is coming in and out of the home. And so that's a huge one for us, because again, this is the time to do it right. And so we're using, special tapes and special sealants that, seal the house to the foundation, for instance, where that was never really a consideration previously. And so it allows us to then, test the house, air test the house to make sure that it's meeting tightness standards for us. But then when you do that, you have to pay attention to the indoor air quality, because again, a house sort of has to breathe to an extent. You don't want to trap all the humidity that, showering and humans breathing and indoor plants is all creating moisture. And so we don't want to trap that inside where it could lead to, mold or mildew growth. And so since we're air sealing the house so tightly, it doesn't breathe on its own like older homes used to do. And so then you have to pay really close attention to ventilation as well, and proper ventilation. So we typically include an ERV, an energy recovery ventilator, which is kind of like a lung for the house. It controls the flow of air inside to outside so that it's circulating, bringing in fresh air, but also capturing, the heat and the moisture content of the stream going out as needed. And also dehumidification, we incorporate into every house, again, so that humidity levels aren't building up to a problematic level inside home. So those are some of the major things that we really focus on. Thermally broken, tightly air sealed, and then, given the proper ability for your home to breathe with an ERV system. And then we also pay attention, obviously, to what appliances, can we integrate that are efficient, like induction ranges, and what heating elements, HVAC elements, like heat pumps are super efficient. So we love those, or mini splits. Water heaters, gas tankless are super efficient. It's gas, it's a fossil fuel, so there's a trade-off. So there's always those conversations with clients as well to figure out, hey, what are your priorities in these areas? So we sort of bake in those exterior thermally broken, air sealed, ERV, but then we work with the clients to figure out what is the right mechanical system, what is the right water heating system for your house. And then we obviously want to talk about solar on every project as well. And is that in the budget? Is that a priority for clients? We'd love to be putting them on every house, and we have been able to put them on a good number of our homes, but want to make sure that we're looking at that not only from an energy perspective, but from a resiliency perspective. When we have power outages from big storms, can, solar with battery be a part of your backup solution for those types of things? So there's a lot that we could talk about in that question, but those are some of the big ticket items for us.
What it means in the end, kind of for the homeowner. So yeah, there's a lot of details to dig into there, but kind of what it means in the end, the homeowner is really, really high quality, healthy indoor air. Like I think
Yeah.
that's a great benefit for, following these passive house standards. Even if we're not building a passive house, if we're incorporating the standards that Ryan talked about, the homeowner is going to end up with a house with high indoor air quality, high durability. The house is going to last because we are keeping water out of it and we're building it to have very high quality standards. And then energy savings for the life of the home. So Ryan talked about how we might spend a little bit of extra money putting that higher quality shell on the house, but that is then a benefit that stays with the home forever, and that's it continues to pay back over the life of the home. So those are kind of the net realizations that the homeowner gets from those things.
Very cool. This is your chance, I guess. I found it in my line of work that I have to do a lot of redirection of concerns and questions. In other words, a lot of my clients have been inundated with information that I find not true or not necessarily big concerns or big considerations, but so many others that I have to put in front of them and discuss with them and kind of show them, share with them in an effort to bring their mindset and the whole project into the path that I'd like to see. I'm sure there must be the same for builders, for you guys. I don't know what clients bring to you, but where your eyes glaze over and you say, why do you keep talking about this? I understand. I mean, I'm not saying I don't care, but really what we should be talking about is XYZ. Are there certain topics that you would love to see that are more discussed more between builders and homeowners or in general in the building industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways we're fighting sort of the HGTV mentality of, clients often may think that should be done in 2 weeks, well, for $100, you know what I mean? And so there's definitely some of that mindset. If folks aren't sort of familiar with the construction industry, we get a lot of sort of HGTV experts on construction, and so there's definitely that element to it. But I think that, one of the things, to your point, that we get to do is sort of educate homeowners on, what impacts do these decisions that you're making now really have on the life of the home, on the durability of the home, on the indoor air quality of the home. A lot of the things we were talking about from the last question is really an education point for us. And we love when we have clients and architects such as yourselves that are sort of already drinking the Kool-Aid and, drawing that directly into the drawings. But if that's not the case, then, we have to educate folks that are saying, hey, why would we do that? Why would we wrap the house in an insulation layer that costs more money? What's sort of the benefit there? So I wish there was more of that conversation in our climate. I think, the Carolinas are relatively mild climate-wise. So this is a conversation that's way ahead of us in Germany and, my home state of Michigan, where, it gets so cold that a lot of this stuff is just built into the building process there. You're going to super insulate, you're going to super tightly air seal. But here in the South, we haven't had sort of the cold driver to push that conversation. And so it's really has been on architects and builders to help bring everybody up to speed on the benefits and why you might want to do that. So I think that's a conversation that we continually are having with folks, and one that we try to help facilitate with other builders and architects as well.
What lies in the future for Spoke and Hammer? What are the big dreams that keeping you awake at night when it's not the stress that keeps you awake? What's up ahead?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've already talked about kind of like we've set the company up under this model of kind of remaining small so that Ryan and I can stay very involved in projects, and that we don't see that changing. We really want to. That's an intentional direction that we want to keep Spoken Hammer in. So we're not going to say, you know, we want to see the company grow 10 times over the next 5 years. We're not really looking for that. We're just looking for cool partnerships with great architects like yourself, great clients who want to build something special, and, you know, projects that are going to keep us excited about learning new things, bringing new things to the market, and creating exciting, beautiful, and high performing homes. So not a lot different, but every project, you know, has its own challenges and kind of exciting points to it. So really, that's just what we're looking for, are those exciting projects, and really those exciting relationships with architects like yourself who are pushing the boundaries. So yeah, we'd love to continue to work with architects like that really want to kind of do new things here in the Charlotte area.
Yeah, we like a good challenge for sure. We don't like to get bored. We don't like to build the same thing over and over. So we feel like it's an area that, you know, we continue to stretch and learn and grow and educate, and kind of the rising tide, you know, floats all boats, so that we are all upping the level of construction, both in terms of performance, as well as just in terms of the craft of building. Kind of circling back to where we started, we really want to push the fine craft of home building, that often has been sort of lowest common denominator. How quick and how cheap can we slap something together? Well, there's not much art and much craft in that. So really taking our time, you know, paying attention, looking at and focusing on the details. Projects like that are the ones that really get us excited about the future.
Thank you for lifting the curtain a little bit and let us peek behind it. Is there something that I haven't asked you or you'd like to talk about before we finish this off?
I think it was quite thorough, Toby.
Yeah, I think you got it all.
Very good. Well, I definitely will leave some links to you guys in the show notes and make sure people can find you. Again, thank you so much for spending the time and you know, sharing some of your world.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
having us.
Yep. Thank you very much.
There you have it, Mike Masto and Ryan Dennison of Spoke and Hammer. I will leave the links to their work in the show notes. I'm your host, Toby Witte, author of Supersizing Bliss, How We Have Betrayed Our Homes and the Happiness We Seek. Please go to supersizingbliss.com to order a copy of my book and find more information. When I don't talk to you, I design sexy, modern, sustainable homes in North and South Carolina and adjacent areas. Subscribe, leave a comment, and click on the links in the show notes.